Welcome, the rare gems. A Sigma female doesn't seek to be understood by everyone. She simply seeks to be true to herself. In that truth lies her greatest power, and in that power lies her greatest mystery. There's something magnetic about a Sigma female, the kind of woman who refuses to fit into society's neat little boxes. She's not loud like an alpha, nor does she fade into the background. Instead, she walks her own path, unapologetically independent, fiercely self-aware, and quietly confident. She doesn't demand attention, yet she has a presence that's impossible to ignore. Sigma females are rare because they've mastered the art of balance. They are strong but know when to be vulnerable, assertive yet deeply introspective. They don't rely on anyone for validation or approval, and that makes them both a man's greatest challenge and biggest obsession. Why? Because they inspire growth, demand respect, and won't settle for anything less than authenticity. This video isn't just about Sigma females. It's a call to embrace your individuality and reclaim your power. If you've ever felt misunderstood or underestimated, this is your sign to lean into who you truly are. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Number 1. She doesn't chase, she attracts on her own terms. A Sigma female doesn't chase, and that's what sets her apart. In a world where so many feel pressured to prove their worth to others, she stands out by proving it to herself first. She knows exactly who she is and what she brings to the table. This self-assurance radiates effortlessly, drawing others toward her without her ever needing to try. It's not arrogance, it's quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't seek approval because it already exists within her. For men, this flips everything they've been conditioned to expect. The chase is often a game, a predictable dance where attention is sought and given. But with a Sigma female, there's no script to follow. She doesn't play hard to get, she simply is hard to get because she doesn't settle. Her attention isn't a reward for persistence. It's reserved for those she deems worthy of her time, energy, and emotion. That makes it rare, and what's rare is always valuable. Her detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. She doesn't need to fill her life with meaningless connections or temporary validation. She understands that her energy is finite and fiercely protects it. This makes her presence feel earned, not given freely, and that dynamic can be intoxicating for those around her. But her power lies in the fact that she's not doing it for effect. She's not withholding to manipulate, she's simply living authentically, choosing herself every step of the way. Men become obsessed, not just because she's unattainable, but because she forces them to question why they crave her so much. She becomes more than a challenge, she becomes a mirror, reflecting their own worth back to them, and only those who rise to meet her standards will ever get close. Number 2, she challenges the idea of what a woman should be. A Sigma female doesn't fit into the traditional molds society often uses to define women. She's not the submissive type who quietly follows, nor is she the domineering force who demands control. Instead, she carves her own path, existing beyond these limiting labels. Her identity is fluid, yet deeply rooted in her own truth, and that alone disrupts expectations. She doesn't perform femininity to gain approval, nor does she reject it out of rebellion. Instead, she redefines what it means to be a woman by simply being herself on her own terms. She's strong without losing her softness, independent yet deeply capable of connection. This nuance forces people, especially men, to confront their preconceived notions of what a woman should be. She challenges outdated ideas that a woman must either shrink herself to make others comfortable or overpower to be respected. For men, this creates a unique tension. She doesn't conform to traditional dynamics where one party leads and the other follows. With her, relationships are partnerships built on mutual respect, growth, and individuality. This shift in power dynamics can be both intimidating and magnetic. Men are drawn to her because she doesn't rely on them for validation or direction, yet she doesn't reject them outright either. She's whole on her own, and that wholeness invites only those who can match her energy. Her existence outside stereotypes is what makes her such a challenge. She doesn't just challenge men to see her differently, she challenges them to see themselves differently, how they approach relationships, power, and connection. She's a fixation because she represents something so rare, a woman who's unafraid to live authentically, breaking the rules not for the sake of rebellion, but simply because they don't apply to her. Number 3. Mystique in everyday life. A Sigma. Female carries an aura of mystique that isn't born from elaborate gestures or calculated moves. It's in the simplicity of how she lives. She doesn't need to put on a show or draw attention to herself because there's an effortless, quiet strength in the way she exists. She's comfortable in her own world, content with who she is, and that inner peace radiates outward. It's not something she has to force. It's a natural byproduct of her self-assurance and independence. Men are drawn to this energy, not because it's flashy or over the top, but because it feels real and untouchable. There's something magnetic about a woman who doesn't need validation. Someone who moves through life with a quiet confidence that doesn't seek to impress anyone. This kind of presence is rare, and it makes her fascinating to those who encounter her. The more they try to understand her, the more they realize there are layers that can't be uncovered by simply scratching the surface. For many men, this creates an obsessive pursuit, trying to figure out what makes her tick, why she's so content on her own, and how she remains so unfazed by external pressures. What makes it even more captivating is that the deeper they dig, the more they realize there's nothing hidden or artificial. There are no games or complex defenses. Just a woman living authentically in her own world, untouched by the chaos around her. That's the allure. A Sigma female's mystery isn't something she constructs. It's a product of the simple, powerful way she lives. And it's this very simplicity that keeps men endlessly intrigued. Number 4. Resilient and non-compromising. Sigma. Females are captivating not because they seek attention or validation, but because of their unwavering resilience. They are often survivors of life's toughest battles, and yet they never allow themselves to be defined by hardship. What makes them so magnetic is their ability to endure adversity with a quiet strength, never wallowing in victimhood or seeking sympathy. They navigate the toughest moments with grace, holding their ground without needing to rely on anyone else to pull them out of it. This independence challenges a man's innate desire to be a protector. Many men are wired to want to save or rescue, but a Sigma female doesn't need saving. She is already whole, already capable. Her strength is something men can't easily match, and that's what makes her both a challenge and an obsession. She doesn't look for someone to fight her battles for her. She fights them herself, and often with more tenacity than those who are supposedly stronger. This doesn't mean she's impervious to love or support. It means she's secure enough to stand on her own without it. For many men, this presents a dilemma. How do you protect or provide for someone who doesn't need you to? It creates an irresistible tension. The Sigma female's self-sufficiency forces them to reconsider their own ideas of masculinity, as they find themselves drawn to her not out of a need to save her, but out of a deep respect for her ability to endure. Her resilience doesn't push men away, it pulls them in as they seek to match her strength while being captivated by her refusal to ever compromise her independence. Number 5. The anti-victim, Sigma. Females are the anti-victims in a world where victimhood is often worn like a badge. While many are quick to blame circumstances, others, or even fate, a Sigma female refuses to see herself as a victim of life. She owns her choices, accepts the consequences of her actions, and takes full responsibility for the life she creates. This level of self-accountability is not only rare but deeply intimidating. It's a stark contrast to the more passive attitudes that many have towards their own struggles. What makes her even more captivating is that, despite her emotional self-sufficiency, she still knows how to share the depths of life's complexities. She doesn't need anyone to complete her, but she understands the beauty of connection when it's genuine. Men are drawn to this because it represents a challenge. They're used to women who either want to be rescued or overwhelmed by their emotions. With a Sigma female, they find themselves needing to step up to her level. Her emotional maturity and resilience make her someone they can't easily manipulate or control. Yet they're intrigued by the possibility of experiencing something real with her. For men, this is where the obsession begins. It's not about trying to fix or save her. She's already whole. It's about the challenge of connecting with someone who doesn't need anyone, but still chooses to share the complexity of their inner world. This balance between independence and vulnerability creates a magnetic pull, leaving men obsessed with the idea of unraveling the layers of her life and, in the process, discovering a depth of connection they rarely encounter. She isn't just a partner, she's an emotional equal who forces them to rise to her level. A heartfelt thank you to you, Rare Gems, for being a cherished part of this community. Your encouragement and support inspire me to keep producing content that matters. I deeply appreciate you. Number 6, absurdly decisive, yet unpredictably fluid. Sigma. Females defy the usual patterns of decision-making that most people get stuck in. They are absurdly decisive, capable of making bold choices without hesitation or second-guessing. But the catch is, they do so with a fluidity that seems almost contradictory. It's as if they hold the power to choose with absolute certainty, yet they aren't tethered to any particular outcome. This creates a paradox that is impossible to ignore. A man might watch her make a life-changing decision with complete confidence, only to realize later that she wasn't stressing over it the way most people would. The weight of the decision doesn't rest on her shoulders, because for her it's just another moment in a larger journey, something she chooses without fear of what might come next. This fluidity is what makes her so magnetic. Men are drawn to the paradox of her decisiveness and detachment. They see her make choices with an unshakable conviction, and yet, when the dust settles, she doesn't let any single outcome define her. It's not that she doesn't care. It's that her sense of self is not attached to whether things go as planned or not. This emotional freedom allows her to move through life with an ease and confidence that others often envy. For men, this is a mystery. They can't figure out how she can be so sure and yet so relaxed about the consequences. It pulls them in, makes them question their own approaches to life and decision-making, and forces them to confront their need for control. With a Sigma female, there's no desperate need to get it right. There's only the decision, the process, and the acceptance of whatever unfolds next. This is what makes her so unpredictable, and why men become so obsessed with understanding her, because she shows them that true power lies not in forcing outcomes, but in the freedom to let life unfold on her own terms. Number 7. She exudes both strength and vulnerability. A Sigma female is a paradox in the most captivating way. She carries strength like a second skin, steady, grounded, and unshakable. But it's not the loud, performative strength people expect. She doesn't need to dominate a room or prove her worth with grand displays. Her strength is quieter, rooted in self-awareness, resilience, and a deep understanding of her own value. Yet what makes her truly fascinating is her ability to balance that strength with vulnerability. She doesn't see vulnerability as a weakness. Instead, she recognizes it as a tool of connection and a sign of courage. She isn't afraid to share her emotions when it matters, but she does so selectively, not indiscriminately. This intentionality creates a sense of authenticity that's hard to find. It's not the kind of vulnerability designed to garner sympathy or attention. It's real, raw, and unapologetic. This duality leaves people, especially men, both confused and captivated. They see her as someone who can stand tall through life's storms, but isn't afraid to admit when she's hurting. It feels real, not rehearsed, and that kind of genuineness is rare. What makes her so different is her ability to decide when to lean into strength and when to show vulnerability. She doesn't overuse one to mask the other. This balance keeps people on their toes, never quite sure what to expect, but always drawn to her depth. For men, it breaks stereotypes. She's neither the distant, untouchable figure nor the overly dependent type. She's both a fortress and an open door, capable of standing alone but willing to let the right people in. That kind of complexity is irresistible because it challenges the notion that a person can only be one thing. She is strength and vulnerability, unapologetically human yet entirely unique. Number 8. Her absence feels as powerful as her presence. A Sigma female leaves an impact that lingers far beyond her physical presence. When she's around, her energy commands attention, not because she's trying to, but because her authenticity, confidence, and quiet strength draw people in naturally. Her presence is magnetic, but it's not overwhelming or loud. She doesn't need to dominate a room to make people notice her. She just is. But her true power lies in what happens when she's gone. Unlike most, she doesn't tether herself to people or situations out of fear or insecurity. She has mastered the art of detachment, not in a cold or dismissive way, but as an expression of her self-sufficiency. She doesn't cling to anyone or anything because she knows her worth isn't tied to external validation. When she steps away, she doesn't make a dramatic exit. She simply withdraws, and her absence is palpable. This creates a fascinating paradox. People crave her presence even more when it's gone because it feels so intentional, so deliberate. She doesn't withhold her energy to manipulate. It's simply that she shares it selectively, valuing quality over quantity. For men, this creates a unique kind of obsession. They realize her attention is not something to be taken for granted. It's something they have to earn. Her detachment isn't a defense mechanism. It's a testament to her emotional independence. She doesn't need to be constantly seen or validated to feel fulfilled. This balance between her magnetic presence and powerful absence keeps people hooked, wondering how someone can be so connected, yet so unattached. In a world where most people fear being forgotten, she stands apart. Knowing her absence carries just as much weight as her presence. And that's why men find themselves drawn to her, even when she's not there. Number 9. Her depth forces men to rise to the occasion. A Sigma female operates on a level that goes far beyond surface interactions. She doesn't have time for empty flattery, shallow conversations, or relationships that lack substance. Her intellect and emotional depth set her apart, creating an energy that is both challenging and irresistible. She isn't impressed by what a man has on the outside, his looks, his possessions, or his status. What captivates her is what lies beneath, his character, his ambitions, and his ability to grow. For many men, this is unfamiliar territory. They're used to situations where charm and effort are enough to win someone over. But with a Sigma female, those tactics fall flat. She requires something more: authenticity, vulnerability, and the willingness to meet her where she is. Her depth calls for engagement on a higher level, one where honesty and self-awareness matter far more than superficial appeal. This forces men to rise to the occasion, to push past their comfort zones, and to show up as their truest, most capable selves. What makes her so magnetic is that this isn't a demand she verbalizes. It's a standard she lives by. She leads by example, showing that depth isn't just something she seeks in others, but something she embodies herself. Men find themselves wanting to match her energy, not out of obligation, but because they recognize that being with her means becoming better. Those who succeed in meeting her depth often find themselves obsessed, not just with her, but with the version of themselves they've unlocked in her presence. The Sigma female doesn't just inspire men, she challenges them to evolve. And in a world that often rewards the bare minimum, her ability to push for something greater makes her unforgettable. She's not just a partner, she's a catalyst for transformation. Number 10. She creates standards, not expectations. A Sigma female doesn't operate on the same traditional rules that many people expect in relationships. While others may expect men to fit specific roles, protector, provider, emotional supporter, a Sigma female is more focused on the idea of mutual alignment. She doesn't approach relationships with a list of expectations, but instead, she sets standards for herself and others. Her standards are rooted in respect, personal growth, and emotional maturity. She doesn't need anyone to fulfill a role that society says they should. Instead, she looks for someone who matches her energy, someone who values themselves as much as she does, and someone who's willing to grow with her on equal terms. For men, this is a refreshing change. There's no pressure to meet certain predefined expectations, to act a certain way to please her, or to fit into a box of what society has told them a man should be. Instead, they find themselves in a partnership where both people are equally invested in their own growth and the growth of the relationship. There's no room for the typical power dynamics or emotional games. It's a partnership built on mutual understanding, respect, and the willingness to evolve together. This shift changes everything. Men find themselves more invested because they're not constantly trying to measure up to someone else's idea of what they should be. Instead, they're challenged to align with a woman who knows exactly who she is and who values the relationship as an equal exchange. With a Sigma female, relationships are about balance, authenticity, and growth, not fulfilling roles or meeting outdated expectations. And that's why men are drawn to her. They want the partnership, the challenge, and the freedom that comes with it. Sigma females are not just a challenge, they're a revelation. They don't conform to the easy, predictable narratives that many people expect from women. Instead, they carve out their own space, fiercely independent, yet emotionally available, complex, yet authentic. The power they hold is not something that can be measured by conventional standards. It's in their quiet strength, their ability to stand alone, and their refusal to fit into anyone else's idea of who they should be. For men, this can be both frustrating and fascinating. They're used to the chase, the games, and the idea of winning someone over. But with a Sigma female, there are no easy wins. She doesn't need to be chased, she's not looking for validation, and her energy is not something to be earned with surface-level gestures. Instead, she forces men to confront their own limitations and question what they truly want in a relationship. This makes her not just an obsession, but a mirror, one that reflects their highest potential, challenging them to rise to meet her on a deeper level. To all the Sigma females out there, remember that your worth is not defined by anyone else's perception. You are not here to be a puzzle for someone to solve, but a force of nature that shapes your own destiny. Own your uniqueness, your complexity, and your authenticity. The right people will be drawn to your energy, not because they want to change you, but because they see and appreciate who you truly are. Keep being unapologetically yourself, and let those who can meet you at your level come into your world. For everyone else, they'll just have to keep wondering. Take care and see you in our next video. God bless.